Hey everybody, welcome back to the Strategy Game Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Shippey, and today we are talking about feeling insufficient and how you can overcome it. Okay, so as we dive into what it means to feel insufficient and comparison, we're going to talk about some tangible things that you can use to break comparison. Just like in the last episode, we talked about what can break fear and gave you a framework and some tangible tools to be able to combat this. And in the first episode of this season, we talked about removing holdbacks. And so really all of this work is centered around taking a regular account of what you're experiencing and what you're feeling so that you can process through your emotions and use the frameworks and the tools to be able to work through them. And when you do this regularly, it becomes a habit. And these habits are gold. I mean, if you can just learn to apply these frameworks and habits to be able to process through the emotions on a regular basis and recognize them and call them out and walk in self-awareness, wow, the things that you are going to be able to do, you will no longer be blocked or held back. You will be able to walk in freedom in your relationships with your teams as a leader, building and scaling, and really just seeking wisdom on your strategy and on your next move. So this is really connected, and this is what we talk about at Storywork with identity-based strategy. And that's why we believe it's so important, because the foundation of the work that we do relies on knowing ourselves, knowing the brand of really our identity's brand, and also knowing the identity of who we serve, the people that we serve very clearly, so that we can speak to them how they want to be spoken to, and so that we can see them and we can meet them where they are in the channels where they go, right? So those are the things that we want to look at. So today we're diving into the feeling of insufficiency, and we want to understand the why so that we can begin to work through it. And I love this quote around this. And it says, "I think that I've truly been searching for as a person, as a writer, as a thinker, as a daughter, is freedom. That's my mission, a sense of liberty, the liberty that comes not only from self-awareness, but also from letting go of many things that weigh us down." So as you look at this last year, what things have really weighed you down? There's probably a lot, right? What things have affected you, and have you recognized them as affecting you or not? And what would happen if you began to really recognize those things and not, and I said this in another episode, not as a license to complain or feel sorry for yourself, but as a license to grieve if you need to, as a license to heal, as a license to receive or offer forgiveness, just as a license to move in a path of self-awareness. And I think that is the difference. And that is something that we can do to be able to operate in healthy spaces with each other. And now more than ever, I believe that's really important. So when we experience insufficiency, or when we feel unprepared or unequipped for the work that lies ahead, that can become conscious or subconscious, right? Comparison taking place, comparison to our coworkers, others in the field, our friends, or those we feel maybe that have made it, and maybe we're not where we think we should be. And so I think we should just recognize the fact that every one of us feels insufficient at times for something, one thing or another. And, if you can even think of the most have it together person that you can think of, they feel insufficient sometimes. We all do, and we're going to, because we're not perfect people. And it's just impossible. So what we have to do is just find different ways of expressing it and processing through it. So, they may not struggle with exactly what you struggle with, but they have struggles. And so they may not ever let on, right? It depends on lots of different personality types, lots of different ways that people grew up, the patterns that they learned, right? But what we can do is take responsibility for ourselves and look at ourselves and say, you know what? I'm giving too much energy. I'm giving too much effort to that particular person or company, or I'm following what they do. I'm looking to them as the guide instead of leaning back on the vision and what I believe I was created to do, right? So we want to make sure that comparison really doesn't hold a place, because if we take a moment to zoom out and get perspective, it becomes irrelevant, right? And so there really is only one you, and there is only one brand, right, that you have created or that you stand for or support, and no one else would do the work exactly like you would. And so the more that you are able to shed comparison and walk in your identity, the more you will share what the world needs from you. So comparison can rob us from joy. It can rob us from operating in who we were uniquely created to be. And the more people have the chance to genuinely see you and know you, the more they will connect, even as a brand, right? And that ultimately leads to clients. So because they like what they see in your genuine identity. So let's bring that comparison that we practice, whether it's subconscious or conscious, into the light, so it can't hold us back from walking in our identity, because the world does need you. And Seth Godin talks a lot about this, that the world needs your work, your words, your thoughts, your kindness, your goodness, your impact, right? But if you stay held down by fear or comparison or past struggles, then you don't get to serve others in the way that you were created to serve. And that joy and that fulfillment that comes from that, and the freedom that you can experience is really important. So that's why we're going through this. That's why we're moving through this process of what breaks comparison. And I talk a lot about the conscious versus the subconscious. And if you would picture your subconscious mind and all of the thoughts that are always running in there and what they're thinking, and there's a lot that you don't maybe even bring to the conscious mind, but I'd like you to practice this week bringing those subconscious thoughts to the conscious, because the more you can bring those things out and forward, the better off that you're going to be if you know what to do with those thoughts. So the more that you can bring any comparison or vulnerability, or even just the ugly things or fear or anger or whatever it is, the more you can bring it to the conscious, the top of mind for yourself, and write it down or vent or express it just in a safe space, then the more that you're able to work through it and clear that out, so that your subconscious mind isn't running full of all of these thoughts that are throwing you off or distracting you or weighing you down, and you're feeling fog and overwhelm, right? And all of those things. So what would happen if you started really regularly moving those subconscious thoughts to the conscious? I love thinking about that. I mean, how amazing is that? And you always have access to this. You can always do this. There's so much freedom when you realize that this is yours. You can do it all the time. Now, I realize that some of it is draining and it's a process, but once we continue to move in that and it becomes a habit or a way of life, then we are able to do so much more. And so here are the 3 things that break comparison, and they are similar to the things that break fear. These are the things that have helped me. So the first is perspective. So when you zoom out to look at the greater vision of the message that you're trying to deliver, the larger goal of what you want to accomplish, being afraid, right, can fade into the background, just like we talked about fear. So when the focus is off of you and it's all about others, that breaks comparison. And the second thing is vulnerability. So when you go afraid and you share your thoughts, your feelings and insights with others, you often meet people that are thinking the same thing, or they're struggling with comparison in a different way, or they're struggling with feeling insufficient or unprepared in a different way, right? And so just the practice of being vulnerable and moving past that state of shame or fear or condemnation, right? That you're speaking to yourself and speaking it out loud or writing it out loud and giving yourself space to know that that is okay, will help you process through any insufficiency or comparison that you're feeling. And you can then move into a state of tactics. So you can actually put actions around those things. Like, what can I do to move forward? Okay, I don't have the resources for this, or I don't feel prepared for this. How can I change this? What action can I take, right? to be able to move out of this. And then there's awareness. So we talked about that self-awareness, but always so important. So on every level, that self-awareness unmasks the comparison that we're feeling. So if we call those things out, if we write them down, if we speak them out loud, it can't weigh us down anymore. So the more we express it, the more freedom we're going to create for ourselves. And that awareness is going to break that comparison or insufficiency. So when we're feeling that sense, we're feeling unprepared or unequipped, right? When we go back to that, we want to go back to these three things: gain perspective, practice vulnerability in a safe space, and practice your awareness. So bringing those subconscious thoughts to the conscious, to the forefront of your mind. And we're going to share a PDF in the show notes on this feeling of insufficiency. And we have a take action worksheet of things that you can really move through. So with journaling and just questions, the 5 whys that we talked about in a previous episode on fear, you can use this framework to peel back the layers of the onion and really help you to identify all of these things, really the why behind what you're feeling or experiencing. And then you can actually set some action steps around this to be able to get that clarity and get the freedom that you need to really move forward and walk in your purpose. So thanks for tuning in today. I'm also going to link in the show notes, aside from the PDF, to our breakthrough map, which is our 4-module e-course of the Strategy Masterclass. It's amazing. It will take you maybe 1 to 2 hours, and you'll have all the PDF guides you need to journal through fear, insufficiency, identity, the things that make you you, to get purpose and clarity as you move into the new year. Thanks for tuning in.